Hello there, welcome back to the drawing table, and as promised we're going to go through in real time how to draw an eye. The things you'll need for this are your kneaded eraser, your blending stump. A smaller one is better. I tend to use the medium one for pretty much everything. And your pencils. Okay, here I've just got the 4B and a dark one, so use the darkest ones you have available. You're also going to need your graphite powder if you want to use it. Okay, and you're going to need a ruler, and you're going to need something to draw around. Okay then, so the first thing we need to do is to decide how big our eye is going to be. Okay, and the way you do that is by drawing a circle, and the circle really is a guideline to make your eye whatever size you want. So if you draw a big circle, you're going to end up with a big eye. If you draw a medium circle, you're going to end up with a medium eye, right? And you have to start drawing these frameworks, otherwise you'll find that every eye you draw will end up either lemon shaped or rugby ball shaped. Now you can draw a circle, you know, if you want to make it hard for yourself, you can draw a circle with your hand. You know, it doesn't really matter if it's a perfect circle, because we're going to rub it out afterwards. What I tend to do is draw around something, okay, but very lightly draw around your round thing. And this is just, like I said, an old roll of sellotape. And that gives me a circle, very rough indeed, doesn't matter if it's squidgy or anything. Gives me a circle, and this circle here is about the size of a squash ball, which incidentally is about the size of the human eyeball. It's okay to alter this because it's all going to get erased anyway, so just draw around something. Like I said, it's an easiest way to do it. Now, if you take this as being the ball of our eye in general, right, we have to decide now what kind of slant we want our eye to be at. Okay, because as you know, different people have eyes slanting in different ways. Okay, so it's the angle of the eye, and the way you do this is you grab your ruler and you draw a line at the angle that you want your slant to be. Okay, so there's the center of this circle. We want to go near the center, but not quite. Okay, so actually I want my slant to be like that. Okay, just like that. So just draw a line dissecting that circle. Okay, so you now got the ball of your eye and the angle at which it's going to look at you at. Okay, so just to reiterate, it doesn't have to go to the center, but keep it fairly close. Okay, and it's now that we get to the nitty gritty, because this is where we're going to start forming the shape of the eye. And we're going to start with the inner corner. And the inner corner is the lowest bit of your eye, which is where the slant comes down. So it's the lowest bit, okay, outside of the circle on the left side. And here you can draw any shape you like, really. This is going to represent the tear duct on the inner side of the eye next to the nose. All right, and it's normally just kind of like a parabola, something like this. Okay, and what you want to do is just draw it gently. Remember, we're not holding the pencil like this so it scratches the paper. We're holding the pencil like this, so if you're just effectively laying a bit of graphite down. So now we've got the eyeball, the slant of the eye, which goes directly through the center of the tear duct. Okay, and we add the tear duct in here to add realism, because every eye has a tear duct. But this is where, if you're copying another eye, this is one of the areas that will make sure you get an authentic copy. So next, we'll draw the top of the eye. Okay, the top of the eye is generally a round feature. Okay, so what you do is come from the tear duct and draw in your eye. You're trying to reach the top of that, but you won't reach it 100%. come all the way down, and you're coming down inside this circle. Okay, so you've got this kind of thing going on. All right, again, very light, and you're only doing basic stuff. So you've come from the tear duct, you've done like a scrolling shape, which is, I suppose, a very wide S, gone nearly to the top of your circle, and you've come down inside of that circle, right where the line, your level line, bisects the circumference of the circle. Right? And for the purposes of this exercise, I'm just going to go with that. But you would take some time here to go with whatever shape you wanted. Okay? So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but in reverse. Okay? And this will form the lower section of the eye. But the lower section of eyes don't have such a rounded contour as the top. All right? So you just do the same thing again and start from this side this time, because it'll be easier. I suppose if you're left-handed, it'll be easier to start from the opposite sides. All right? And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to draw from the inside line, and you're making a sweeping curve with a little bit of an up at the end, a little bit of a bump in the end, just like this. Okay? Just like this. You're trying to get a little bit down from the center, not all the way down to the end of the line. This needs to be quite shallow. All right? So you come along, and then when you get almost to the end, you can add a little bump. Just like this. That's just for realism. All right? And this is the same as this in terms of the time you take to do it. Just take a bit more time to get the shape that you absolutely want. And if you're copying somebody's eye, or if you're drawing a portrait, this is important. Just get the shape of that eye just like this. Okay? For the purposes of the exercise, I'm happy with that. Okay then, so now we've got an upper eyelid crease to draw. Okay? So you can see the top bit of where our eye would be in the socket. Okay? This still enables us to get things in the right location and to keep them to proportion still. So all you do with the crease of the eye is just follow the top eyelid. So you're going to where the dip is here, all the way around to this line, and all you're doing is following that circle all the way down to the level line. Okay? And that kind of makes sense when you think of it, because if you come down below this line, then you actually got somebody's eyelid, top eyelid, below the bottom one. And I've never really met anybody like that. It'd be a bit freaky if you did, I suppose. Okay? So what we've got now is a series of very light lines. Some of them I've drawn thicker for you to see. Got a series of very faint or light lines that give you the basic outline of my eye. So I can see from this that my eye is going to be quite wide open, right? And I've done that on purpose so that I can show you the iris and stuff. Now, what you can do now is grab your kneadable eraser and rub out your construction lines. And this is where you find out whether or not you've done them light enough or you've been too heavy-handed. It just comes with practice. And so does the whole drawing an eye thing come with practice. Don't expect to get a perfect eye the first time, and don't expect to get a perfect eye every time. All right? They're quite frustrating because we all think we know what eyes should look like, but as you see it, as we draw it, you can see there's a few things that we tend to miss out when we're drawing eyes. And if you want a realistic eye, you can do it this way. Okay? So now it's time to get in some detail. This is you can see it's like an eye. It's like like an Egyptian eye on the hieroglyphs, or it's like a statue eye, and that's because it has no iris. Okay, Now the iris is about a quarter width of the whole eye altogether. So our whole eye goes from here to here. So if we separate that into fours, and I'll draw it on here. So maybe we go 1, 2, 3. There we go. That something like that, roughly. So your iris is about that wide, okay? And we're going to draw in the iris in the middle of the eye, okay? And try to make a nice circle. Now you can either do this freehand, should I say, or you can have a stencil. It doesn't really matter. Just do what you're comfortable with. I'll draw it with a stencil because I'm cheating and I'm demonstrating. But what I don't want to do is make a big deep line. It's not what I want anyway, so I'll just draw it myself. Okay, so you're drawing an eye, an iris should I say, just like I've done here. Again, very, very faint lines. Now, I can see that the iris is going to show above the bottom of my eyelid. So now is the time to make some alterations. Some people have an eye like that, if you take any notice, but I don't want that. I want to close my eye a bit more. So I'm going to do my adjustments. And I'm going to touch the bottom of the iris just by doing that. And then I'm going to rub out my very faint lines that I did earlier on. Okay? So now's the time to have a play around with the shape of your eye when the iris is in. And for the purposes of this exercise, that's what I'm going with. Right? So now you can see we've got quite a decent eye. Now, we already decided that the tear duct is down here. So let's add another bit of detail, again with a faint line. And we're going to go and do this. That's that bit of skin just inside your tear duct. All right. Okay, just give you a bit of time to catch up now. So now we've got a basic eye. And what we need to put into this eye is a light reflection. Most eyes reflect light. And it's the light reflection which gives it a bit of realism when it comes to drawing. Okay, so just as we did with the sphere, remember, decide where you want the light to come from. I'm going to go for the light coming from here. Does this sound familiar? So light source coming from here, right? Which means some light will bounce off the eye round about here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw any shape that I want, but make sure it follows the contour of the eye. So you can draw any shape. This is a bit of fun that you can get when drawing details of the eye. Just draw in that shape. I've drawn a little window just for the purposes of this, okay? Because that's what I've been showing you as we go through the drawing lessons. Be creative though. You can add more than one. You can add two if you like. Okay, or you can add a series of dots. Now, the thing to remember though is inside here needs to be white at all times. You're protecting this white. So when you're smudging or when you're using your tissue paper or blending stump, do not go into there. Many artists will mask that out with masking tape or some masking fluid. Some artists don't even bother until afterwards and they add it again with white gouache. Or some artists even use a Tipp-Ex pen. Okay, there's a top tip. Now we've got to that and you can already see something appearing here that looks a little bit like an eye. But we've got one thing missing, and that's the pupil. All right. So we already know what the center of the eye is like, right? It's about there. Now I want you to draw the pupil, if you would. And you do that around the center of the eye. Just like so. Now, warning. If you've got a huge light source coming in, so like a big reflection, then the pupil is obviously going to respond to whatever light. So in terms of realism, if you've got a little reflection, then your pupil might well be a big one. Okay, if you've got quite a lot of light coming in, your pupil's going to be, reasonably small in comparison. Okay, so what I've done is I've drawn a pupil that gives me enough room to show you what we're going to do with the iris later on. But this again is your choice.